It's
You don't see that notice in front of my screen, do you?
okay. We're good now. We're good to go.
Okay, good morning. Thank you all for coming to the 41st Annual Fall Symposium of the Native Plant Society of Texas. This year, we're celebrating conservation and community. And our mission is promoting conservation, research, and utilization of native plants and habitats of Texas through education, outreach, and example. This morning, we are live on YouTube, and we're going to review some of our programs that are statewide. The Bring Back Bring Back Monarchs Texas program will be led by Carol Clark, the chair of that committee. Then Meg Ingalls will go over the Native Landscaping Certification Program. Then Bill will do Wild Plants of Texas. And we've shifted the NICE presentation to the very last thing. So just so you're aware of that. So I will stop sharing and then let Carol begin her program. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up my screen here and attempt to share that. And somebody tell me if you see it. Is it up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I am Carol Clark. I am the chair of the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas Committee currently. I'm also a Monarch Watch conservation specialist and a Texas master naturalist with the Blackland Prairie chapter. So I do a lot of things. And when I do things, I don't always know which hat I'm wearing. So who are we and what do we do for NIPSOT? Let me make sure my program will advance. Once upon a time, the Native Plant Society and Chip Taylor of Monarch Watch had representatives that were having a dinner together. And they said, you know, monarchs really need native plants. And Texas is at a crucial place for monarchs and their survival. What can we do collaboratively to do something together for both monarchs and native plants? And they came up with the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas idea. And it is housed under the Native Plant Society of Texas, but it is a cooperative venture. You can find us or email us at bbmt.nipsot.org or at nipsot.org, not dot. The purpose of our committee is twofold, and we do call it the BBMT just to save time most of the time, to provide in-person, virtual, passive education opportunities about Texas native plants and about monarch butterflies, and to promote additional monarch habitat that uses native plants. And we do a lot of public speaking. I was just counting out what was on my calendar. I do have a committee and some of them also go out speaking, but I did 50 presentations in the past calendar year. In support of these goals, we run an annual garden grant program, and that's probably what we're best known for. Those grant applications open up sometime in November each year, and the application window closes in February. Then my committee gets very busy reading these applications, deciding who the winners are, and dispersing funds. The requirements for a garden grant to be a winner are based on the Monarch Way Station concept. These example gardens must provide host plants, nectar plants, and shelter plants for monarch butterflies, and they must be native plants. This is an example of a Monarch Way Station at University of Kansas. To be a winner, you do not have to register your Monarch Way Station and you do not have to buy the sign, but that's an option for anyone. There's another one, roadside right-of-way that was used, but they don't have to be huge. These gardens can be small. This is a Monarch Way Station that is not necessarily based on native plants, but I wanted to show you the size and the shape. They had these modules at a juvenile detention center. Very cool concept. Remember, small spaces can make a big difference for small creatures. So anything 100 square feet and up is a really great addition. And if you have a lot of these, in proximity, then you have small spaces sort of connected for creatures that fly, and you start to be looking at real habitat availability. Just two examples of small spaces. My tiny front yard in suburban Allen, Texas is a great little Monarch way station in its own right. And this is a friend in Plano, Michael McDowell, who has a great blog called Plano Bluestem. But you can see he has used native plants in his front yard landscape, and the monarchs are thriving there at his landscape. Milkweeds, which is their host plant, could even be grown in pots if needed. Of course, big is great too. This is my refuge up near the Red River, and it is 36 acres of Monarch Way Station. Now, it's unlikely that we're going to be able to fund your 36-acre project, so bear in mind that the grants are limited to $400. So what are those garden grant parameters? The gardens must include native milkweeds and nectar plants. We don't fund anything that's not native. Grants are currently limited to a maximum of $400, and each year the money must be spent by October 31st and an update report submitted to the committee by November 30th. This is a change from our past practices because we felt it was better for school gardens in particular to go in the fall. Gardens must have public access with good educational potential. This one is at an educational facility in Denton, and it's just going in. It looks a little bit sparse right now. The garden grant money can only be used for the purchase of native plants or native plant seeds, never hardscaping, soil amendments, benches, labor, design, signs, or anything other than plant material. So we get a lot of applications that are very enthusiastic, but they're short on concrete details. And while we love the enthusiasm, that does not necessarily translate into a successful garden grant application. Our application is specifically designed to uncover problems in the planning stages so that your NIPSOP money is not wasted and the time and effort of the group trying to put in these educational gardens is also not wasted. So we try to lead you through the design process with our questions. Because our end goal is always to see more monarchs and using native plants like this beautiful male here on our native Leotris. We find these gardens do get used, particularly the ones in schools. Teachers take the kids out and they get to marvel at the butterflies using these plants. This one is in Dallas, I believe. Garden designs must also showcase native plants in a positive way. If we look at your garden plan and it looks like it's not going to look very good, or it's going to have long periods of the year where nothing's happening in that garden, we may call you and have you tweak that design a little bit, or maybe just not approve that grant. But we like to see them used in ways that are going to be appealing to the public who may not be familiar with native plants and their uses that much. These are from the Tennyson Parkway Pollinator Garden, installed and maintained by Karen Albrecht. Some more from the Tennyson Parkway Garden. This one is from the Allen Heritage Center. They did work with native plants a little bit, decided they liked it, and decided to use this piece of antique farm machinery as a backdrop for a swath of native wildflowers, and they're very happy with this installation. These gardens also actually work for monarchs, creating real habitat for them. This one is at a college, and the lady that you see in the background is actually taking photos and making notes because she works with another environmental group in another city, and she is taking ideas back to use for their projects. They can be almost any place with public access. This one is out in front of a church. This is a garden in a floodplain, and they were actually looking for plants that might help anchor the soil there. It's along a public walking trail, and they wanted to introduce the many, many walkers on that trail to native plants and their uses. So what are our judging criteria? Well, again, we want to conserve your money and use it only for gardens that we really think are going to work long term. So we're picky. We're looking for knowledge of native plants versus non-native plants. We're looking for pre-approval from any authorities before we issue any money. We don't want your principal later saying, no, we really don't want to do that, even though you thought it was a good idea and that you could get approval. We're looking at the location, the team you have in place to both plant it and care for it later, and that the plants are well chosen for their site and that they're going to get along together in a garden. If you have a bog plant next to a desert plant, we kind of get the feeling this garden won't work so well long term. You need to have a maintenance plan and the personnel in place to accomplish that maintenance plan. A water source, because that's important for getting plants established. An installation plan that is realistic in terms of time and manpower and the season that they're going in. You need to understand the care needs of the plants and their finished sizes. If you have a Maximilian sunflower 6 inches from the path in your garden design, we know that's not going to work. Evidence of basic gardening knowledge and some realistic expectations. So we're looking for all of these things when we read the applications. So even more criteria, we're looking for a level of specificity, not just a rectangular box for your garden plan that says plants go here. We want to see the layout of that garden. So we're looking for an actual layout. We want to know how it's going to be used for education, whether that's passive with walkers being able to see signs or something like that, or active classes being taught out there. And we're looking for appropriateness for context and region. If you have to deal with an HOA, it's going to have a certain level of tidiness involved. Here's some examples of actual garden plans that were submitted. They don't have to be professionally drawn, and they don't have to be, very, and this is an example, I didn't realize this slide was still in there, sorry, of one that did not have enough level of specificity for us. We need more detail than that, but it can be hand drawn, that's fine. We just don't need to have a professional plan is the point here. It's nice if those plans actually allow for the finished sizes of plants. And one way to do that is to cut out little paper circles representing scaled sizes of plants and make sure they fit in your design. So what happens when a garden grant gets rejected for funding? Well, the learning doesn't stop there. They get a letter with some details of things that might have gone wrong with that grant. Everybody gets that same letter. They get an invitation to write to me or call me and get more detail. They get phone calls, and we do a lot of phone calls with our grant applicants. Here's one that got rejected, but then was funneled to a local chapter for funding. It was a good design. We just didn't think it had enough public exposure. And it's off in the corner below that pool enclosure that you see there. So you can think of this as an incentive for groups to research and learn more about native plants and their uses in landscaping, and to take that knowledge back to their communities. So does it work? We think it does. Here are just a few slides of these native gardens in action. And I think I'm running over my time, so I'm going to wrap this up really quickly. We get wonderful feedback from people who say these gardens have changed their lives. And that is an amazing thing. Some Girl Scouts planting. This one is a milkweed test patch at the Mercer Botanic Gardens, where they had some surprising results, and that was a good thing. This one is in front of the Central Christian Church in Austin. This one is down on the coast. The Monarchs are using these gardens. I'm going to skip through these slides here because this is a before, during, and after kind of set of photos from an arboretum. But I did want to get to this lady's comment. So let me back up one slide. Let's see if I can back up. I can't back up. Okay, so this went in at the Allen Heritage Village, and it's close, so I can visit it fairly frequently. But the ladies who put it in were from a garden club. Many of them were master gardeners. They did not have a lot of experience with native plants. So they had some other plants in there that were not native. And they wrote this grant to add native plants to an existing garden. But here's what they wrote. They wrote, "These have performed superbly, and I am planting another 9 on campus. Awesome in our garden. Just bought 2 more for another area on campus. I hate how landscapers try to shear them." So they are getting involved with the look and the uses of native plants and getting used to that as a new normal for them. Here she does have this native land or verbena mixed with something that's not native, but look what she says. She says this verbena rarely stops blooming, likes deadheading, plays well with others. We will be combining it with 4-nerve daisies in the future. So traditional gardeners are being trained to use these native plants. So I think I probably ought to just wrap it up here. The other pollinators are using these gardens too. And I'm just going to page through these slides so you can see how they're being used, because I need to get to the end where I tell you how we're funded. I misjudged the time. So let's see, funding. I have to find a way to go back. Okay, no, that's, sorry. You can help by donating to the BBMT or generating a list of plants in your area. That would be something we're really looking for that Monarchs use. So nectar plants that you've seen Monarchs using. But I want to tell you about our funding. We're an all volunteer committee. No one is compensated. Monarch Watch has committed $2,000 per year since the program began, and the Native Plant Society from the state level gave $2,000 a year until recently. More recently, when we had a grant year, when there wasn't enough money to fund all the good grant applications that we wanted to, they have committed to giving as much as needed so that we always have $10,000 when we start distributing grants in the spring. Our largest source of funds, though, comes from individual private donations. Some of those aren't even, some of them are anonymous. We don't even know who sent those. And from voluntary chapter donations to the BBMT. And you can do this online very simply by clicking that option under the tab that says donate on our main website. So we're very, very grateful to all of you who have donated. Don't wait for someone else to improve habitat. Do it yourself on any size piece of land that you have control over. This is a program that helps people do that. And if you need to get hold of me for any kind of questions at all, please email the bbmt@nipsot.org. I can't stick around for questions today. I'm actually heading up to McKinney, Texas to a roundtable discussion on how to restore habitat on 400 acres of parkland. So we really, really want to be available for that and help them do that with native plants. Thank you very much for your time.
Carol, thank you so much. That was a wonderful overview of your program, and I wish you great success today.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. All right, next we have our NLCP program with Meg Ingalls.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Okay, let me see. I'm going to, Why do we, okay, I'm going to start my slideshow maybe and then do it. Bill, I've never had this happen before, but somehow I'm just going to share one screen. And I'm not sure what you see at this point. Probably Catalina. Is that correct?
We see your desktop.
Okay, good. That's what we want. Now you should see the presentation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I love Carol's presentation, and I think it's a great lead-in to talking about the Native Landscape Certification Program. I'm Meg Inglis, and I'm the coordinator for the Native Landscape Certification Program. I've been with the program for about 7 years now, over 7 years, and I'm from the Austin area. Hold on. Well, goodness. Let me get rid of all this and see if I can, what I have to do to make this thing go forward. There we go. Okay, so what is the Native Landscape Certification Program? It's a series of day-long classes, and it teaches native plant landscaping best practices. And each class has 3 parts to it. It's got a presentation about the actual topic, which I'll go over in just a minute, and then a presentation on plants in that particular ecoregion. We talk about 45 natives in that area and 5 non-natives that we prefer you do not plant. And then the third portion is a walk to see the plants in their natural setting. What's the purpose of it? Well, we want to promote the value and conservation of native plants and introduce native habitats into landscapes and reduce the destruction of native habitats, because we all know that habitats are disappearing rather rapidly in Texas. And the other thing we'd like to do is to provide credentials to the people who take the classes so that they can go out and spread the word, so to speak. We want to get professional landscapers involved so that they can go, instead of doing one landscape, for example, in their own backyard, they can provide landscapes to their clients, their customers. And the landscaping, the NLCP credentials, they can put on their resumes and on their cards. And so that really makes them more official, makes them more knowledgeable. We also want to influence landscape outcomes by encouraging advocacy. And we're currently working on an advocacy class that will help you work with community, governmental agencies, as well as your HOA. And then finally, this program was started at the state level. And what we do is we provide it to chapters so that they can educate people in their particular area. So I'll go over the ecoregions in a bit, but keep in mind that this is a statewide program and it's implemented by the chapters within the NIPSOT. Who should take the Native Landscape Certification Program? Well, here's a list of potential students that take it. But as I mentioned earlier, the primary focus in the beginning was to try to attract landscape professionals so that we can impact a larger proportion of the community. We work with nursery professionals as well, the Texas Nursery and Landscape Association, and so hopefully we'll be able to impact the people who actually provide the plants, because we all know that's a big issue. We need to be able to sell more native plants. And then these other homeowners, master gardeners, master naturalist teachers, etc. So I did promise a discussion about the class topics. The level 1 is a basic introduction to native landscapes. It's a prerequisite for all the other classes in the series of levels 1 through 4. And the topics, we talk about the value of native plants in the landscape and the impacts of what conventional development does. And then also we address the ecoregions and the soils of the area in which the class is taught. And we talk about preservation of existing natives within the landscape, and we provide resources. That's the topic in instruction presentation. And then we do our plant instruction presentation and the outdoor walk. And there is an optional test. We'll get into that in just a bit about what that means, the test. Level 2 then, it gets a little bit further into the landscape design. We talk about ecological and cultural impacts on native landscapes. We actually go through the design process pretty thoroughly and have a design exercise so that you can practice those skills, because I think it's pretty intimidating to many people. So just actually sitting down and pulling together a landscape on a piece of paper that for something that doesn't really is not something that you care about, makes it quite easy to go, oh yeah, I want to put this here and I want to put that there. So the exercise I think is very useful. Then we also have the plant instruction and the outdoor walk with the optional test. Level 3 then goes into how do you install those landscapes. And then maintenance is really crucial. Maintenance of native plant landscapes, as we all know, is different than a conventional landscape. So we talk about installation and maintenance, and we're talking about all the categories of natives, which would be the trees and the ground covers and the vines and the grasses, etc. And we address the differences between what is a traditional approach in maintenance to the native landscaping approach. And also we look at, talk to professionals in the sense that we try to help them estimate how we give them actually an Excel spreadsheet, which allows them to look at their maintenance over the year. So they can actually create a maintenance matrix for a particular garden or bed, and then use that over the year to remember and determine what types of maintenance that need to take place over that particular time period. Individuals can use that as well, but we're hoping that this will appeal to the professionals. Again, another 45 plants of native plants and another 5 that we wish for you not to plant, and an outdoor walk. So you can see we talk about a lot of plants. If you take all 3 of these classes within a particular region, you get a huge amount of instruction about the different plants that are available, that grow in your area. Level 4 was just recently developed. It's stewardship of native plant communities. And so it looks at a larger scale well, basically we try to talk about stewardship as in your backyard all the way up to large scale properties. But the focus is more on large scale properties. And so our topic instruction includes, we talk about what is stewardship and how do I fit into it? If I just have a backyard, what do I do? And then we talk about threats to natural habitats, how to create a stewardship plan, and then what kind of practices you might want to do on your piece of property or your front yard in order to create your stewardship plan, to steward your plants on your land. And then with a stewardship plan, you always have to look at what you've done over time, monitor it and reassess, and then make adjustments. And finally, we provide resources for you if you in your stewardship process. Now, rather than talk about 45 more plants and go on a plant walk, we go on what's called a conservation field trip. And usually this is to a larger piece of property where you can actually look at the plant communities that exist in a particular area. So this is a picture, for example, of a Gulf Coast prairie that was taken by Scott Buckle. Isn't it beautiful? I just love the prairies. And then finally, we did develop something that's not associated with levels 1 through 4, but it is a native landscape certification program class. It's called a companion class, and it's called Native Landscapes for Birds. And this has actually been a pretty popular class. We talk about bird migration, what birds you might expect to find in the region and what season, what do birds really need in their landscape to thrive, the relationship between birds and plants, and how do you actually create a bird-friendly landscape. And we do cover 50 plants, native plants that you can use in your bird gardens. And we also do an outdoor plant walk, but there's no test associated with this particular class. So for levels 1 through 4, excluding birds, level 1 is the prerequisite. Then after you take level 1, you can take levels 2 through 4 in any order. And that's for everybody. That's one of the rules that I have to enforce. Certificates, I promised a discussion about certificates. At this point, what we're doing is we provide a class level competency certificate to those of you who attend the class, take the test, and pass the test at the end of class. And then if you take levels 1 and 3 and get your competency certificate, then we'll give you another certificate for native plant landscape maintenance. So this is primarily for organizations that provide maintenance in the different areas. We have the San Antonio River Authority, and we have there's a bunch of county maintenance people that we actually give these two presentations to. And then the native plant landscapes competency certificate is once you've taken all 4 levels at the competency level, then we will send you out this certificate. And we just did our level 4 pilot class last May. And I just want to let you guys know, I will get those certificates out to you. I haven't created them yet. I think we're going to go in a different direction on how they look. And so I promise I'll get it out, but we have 40 people who have graduated, and we're very excited to get them out. They're going to be our instructors for classes. We actually have our first level 4 class hosted by Dallas in December. So we want to emphasize that if you take these classes at the competency level, we want you to brag about it. So please put the certifications on your professional cards, in your advertising, on your resume, etc. We used to provide certificates to people who just completed the classes, but we no longer do that. But if you do attend a class and stay the whole time, please understand that you will be free to take any of the other classes, but you won't receive a certificate for that. We provide continuing education credits through TNLA, the Texas Nursery and Landscaping Association, provides 6 CEUs for our classes. The landscape architects typically will get CEUs for it. Master gardeners and master naturalists, please check your local chapter. And the International Society of Arboriculture will provide credits as well. All CEUs are self-reported by the student. So if you need CEUs, then you'll need to contact the coordinator about that. You go to the state website and sign up for these classes. And in order to encourage people to take the classes, our first level, the one that everybody has to take first, is the same price for everyone, $45, which is a bargain for an all-day class. And then all the other classes are $50 for NIPSOT members and $65 for non-members. So we encourage you to become a NIPSOT member and take advantage of that discount. So just wanted to thank all the chapters that are participating in this program, because literally this program is run by volunteers as well. Very dedicated, wonderful volunteers. So here's a map of the different NIPSOT chapters. You can see the ecoregions that they occupy or that they'll cover. So for example, this one down in the San Antonio chapter will cover, it actually covers these 3 ecoregions. It'll cover Balcones Canyonland at the edge of the Edwards Plateau. This is the Southern Blackland Prairie, and as well as the Post Oak Savannah. So if you want to if you want to do landscaping in North Central Texas, however, you'll want to go to one of the classes that's up here in the North Central Texas area. They'll cover the ecoregions that you live in and the plants that grow in those ecoregions. Here's the program status as of this fall. Out of all of the chapters that we have throughout the state, and I think we have about 36 or 37, so we have 16 chapters that participate in the program. And here's a list of who provides what. And you can see, as I mentioned earlier, Dallas is going to do the fall, do a level 4 in the fall. That class is full. We have a long waiting list for it already. So I believe at this point, you'll need to wait until the spring of 2022, at which point, hopefully, we'll have more level 4s available. You know, classes used to be in person. I think I have a slide about that. Yeah, classes pre-COVID were in person and very hands-on, as you can see by these photographs that Kathy Saucier took. We provide plant samples in different formats. This is an herbarium that the North Texas chapters use. We also will provide plants that you can just pick up and hold in samples of plants. We have resources, we talk about resources and books to purchase, but this gives you a chance to look through the books. And then here's some plants down here in the corner. Sometimes some chapters have plant sales. Some chapters bring in plants from nurseries, and just so that you can see them in their pots. And then, I don't know, sometimes they sell them afterwards. So it's the in-person classes, I'm kind of nostalgic for those right now. But ever since the spring of 2020, that was the first spring of COVID, we actually canceled all of our classes that spring, and then did a quick about face and started doing online classes. And that's been it's actually taught us an awful lot. And I'm thinking that upcoming classes we'll have some that are going to be in person, some that will be online, and some that will be what we call a hybrid, where they do classes online and then a plant walk in person. We'll see. So what do we hope to get from these classes? We'd like to see some changes in landscapes. And I just wanted to show you, this is a picture of the San Antonio River Authority Environmental Center landscape. And you can see, this is a before picture. You can see that it's just a typical landscape where, and frankly, the middle layer is just totally removed, and a park-like environment. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was that all the water from the building, not all of it, but much of the water from the building is channeled through this channel right here out to the parking lot, which is kind of a typical response to engineering response to working with water. Well, they went through, and this is the same area with a different bit of a different look. They've got the water still goes into the channel, but it then goes down into this rain garden area. So the water will stay there, settle down, go back into the aquifer. Down in the central Texas, we have real big issues with water, and we want to maintain every drop that we possibly can. And rain gardens are really popular because they just soak the water back into the ground instead of creating runoff. And then look at all the middle layers that have been added. And plus they added this little, they added a place for people to eat their lunches, which I think is really cool under the trees. So that's an example of what you can do with a native landscape, how to transform it. And then this transformation at the Mission Reach in San Antonio, I think is quite impressive. Here's what it looked prior to the efforts of the San Antonio River Authority. And then here's the same spot a few years later. I think it was a very short time, maybe 3 years later, 2 or 3 years later. Incredible difference, I think. And then also I wanted to show Carol Feldman's before and after. So she's got these slides that she uses in the installation and maintenance class, where we talk about what it's going to look like when you put a plant in, and then what it's going to look like after the plants actually grow up. And she likes to point out that this tree had to be removed in this yard. So there are changes that are made without, as we all know from the ice storm, without us planting them. I know I lost some trees during the ice storm. So you just have to be nimble and flexible with your gardens, I guess, whether they're native or not. And then here's another example of a planting of one of her landscapes, and then what it looks like 3 years later. And I doubt I have any time for questions, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And so let me escape and stop sharing.
Let's see, since we're running a little bit late, maybe I should start the next presentation.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. And I'm going to turn everything off.
Can everybody hear me okay? I can't tell for sure if my voice is echoing or not.
I can hear you, Bill.
Great.
Hey, you sound good.
I'm going to talk today about a little bit about Texas Native Plant Week and about some of the things that we do to celebrate Texas Native Plant Week. Now, I don't know if you are familiar with Texas Native Plant Week. It was a, a celebration that was conceived of by a couple of our members. Faye Tesno of the Highland Lakes chapter was the one who kind of thought of this idea and took it to her state representative, which was Donna Howard of Austin, and she authored a bill and passed it through our state legislature back in 2009, and it was signed into law by George Bush, who was the governor at that time, and we've been celebrating it ever since. It's the third week of October, which this week that corresponds to October 17th through October the 23rd. And we have had similar celebrations all along in our history. The Texas Native Plant Society actually got started with a Wildflower Day back in Denton in the 1980s, and that's sort of no longer is in existence, I don't think, but now we have the Texas Native Plant Week, which is a week that we can celebrate native plants. We can have sponsor events during that time, like plant sales, educational events for children, plant walks, and a variety of similar types of events that raise the awareness and educate the public about the value of native plants. So one of the things that we have been doing the last couple of years, and it's kind of increased in importance in the last year when it's been difficult to meet in person, but we have begun having an annual Bioblitz during Native Plant Week. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Bioblitz now. I don't know, probably many of you know what a Bioblitz is, and you know that it's connected to iNaturalist, so I'm going to not go into great detail about that, but I do need to tell you that the Bioblitz is an iNaturalist thing, and iNaturalist is an app. It's a type of social media. This is my observation list here in iNaturalist. I'm a participant in that. And what you do with this app, in case you are not familiar with it, it's both an app on your desktop, which is what you're seeing here, and it's also an app on your phone. And you can use it to identify plants or catalog plants, and it uses
Hey, Bill, could you speak up, please? For some reason, you're not very loud anymore.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. This is an example of a desktop app with my observations on it. You need to sign up for this, install the app either on your desktop or on your phone or both, and use it. One of the useful things about it too is that you can have things like projects. For instance, we have in our neighborhood a project that somebody started to catalog the wild plants in our neighborhood. So that's one thing that I participate in. And another thing that you can participate in is Bioblitz. And a Bioblitz is a particular event. In this case, we've set up an event with the help of Sam Kieschnick, who is a urban biologist or Texas Parks and Wildlife in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But this is a Texas-wide Bioblitz, and it is this corresponds to the week of Texas Native Plant Week, and it's an attempt to catalog as many wild plants as possible during that week. Now, this is what the page for the Wild Plants of Texas Bioblitz Challenge looks like for this year. However, you don't really need to actually do anything to join this, because if you identify wild plants in Texas during this week and they're in Texas, then they will automatically be cataloged to this Bioblitz project. So we want to see how many wild plants we can find during this week. So later on, you'll have a chance to hear Sam speak. He's going to be speaking about moths, and he may go into a little more detail about this Bioblitz at that time. So I'm going to go ahead, since we're running a little bit late, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our next speaker, who's going to talk about the NICE program. Are you ready, Kim?
Oh, you know what, Bill? We're actually not running late. It's from 10 to 11:30. So I'll do the NICE, and then maybe we'll have time then for questions on any of our programs. How does that sound?
That sounds like a good idea. I thought I was supposed to finish by 10:45.
No, it's from 10 to 11:30, but that's okay. We're good. All right. Let me share my screen. And those were excellent overviews of our programs. And this morning I want to talk about the NICE program, which was developed in the early 2000s by the Bernie chapter in the Hill Country. And we've got Walt Shaw here today. Walt, can you unmute and show us your video so that you can talk about things as we go along the way? That would be great, especially the history of the Bernie chapter doing this. In the Bernie area, a lot of the chapters are using the natives instead of common exotic NICE logo with the water drop, which was developed by their chapter. And as time moved on, the North Central chapters decided to move to a different logo with a different acronym saying natives improve and conserve environments. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I guess I should play. That'll make it better. Here we go.
Can you hear me?
Oh, it's a terrible echo.
Yes, Will, we can hear you.
I've actually lost my audio through my PC, so this is bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's
I've got
gonna
you
work.
on my phone, but so I don't think it's working like it should.
Working a little too well.
I'm glad you're in. I'm glad you decided to join us from your cave, Will.
Will,
Well,
you
if you
can
feel like you need to chime
turn
in
on your-
too. There you go. All right. If you feel like you need to chime in, do, but know that you will echo. All right, then in 2001.
Okay, is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, I turned my speaker off. There is some audio coming through my PC, so I think that's what's causing the echo.
No, you're actually pretty good now.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll have a little problem hearing you because basically I had to turn the speaker off on my iPhone so that we wouldn't have the echo. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little background on our NICE program that we have here in Bernie. We are the originators of this program, and it was actually the concept came up in 2001 in the fall. One of our members, Rebecca Rogers, she was at the time she was the county extension agent and a member, and she saw a need for having native plants from the hill country, specifically is how she had talked about it, emphasized and provided by the members or by local nurseries to all the citizens. And so she talked about this, first of all, with the late Bill Ward Dr. Ward, and he's the one that really got it kicked off. And so it actually started in 2002. And all this occurred before I was a member of the Native Plant Society. So that's pretty much how things began. And Kim mentioned the water drop at the end. You know, it's like an exclamation point, but it does express, we want to say it expresses excitement for the program, since you can translate it as either an exclamation point or a water drop. But the water, that's very important in that native plants, of course, as we all know, help with water conservation. And so that was the main gist of that. And the name we had for it, but of course, NICE, stands for Natives Instead of Common Exotics. And I believe some of the other chapters that have started this program, they've altered the words because to make it, I guess they think it sounded a little harsh. But someone, you agree with that, Kim? I'm not sure.
I do. I think that the exotics, for one thing, we were prescient because Clemson just did a year-long study on invasive plants, and they recommend not using the term exotics. They had a whole article on terminology, which we can put into our Dropbox so that the participants can see that article. But it's confusing, and we think it's confusing, and that they recommend using the term non-native and invasive. So instead of common exotics, common exotics is very confusing to people. But if you train people in your area,
we don't really think
that's different.
We don't really agree with that, but
okay.
Anyway, as far as the Bernie chapter, we're sticking with that, with the way we had it originally, and really don't want to change that. But to kind of give you an idea of, first of all, I'm sure many of the chapters already have a NICE program. And there may be a few. I believe it's the Austin Society is wanting to start a chapter or start the program in their chapter, and which I'm certainly willing to help with. But so the way we go about it is and there's different ways to do this. You can have a committee that comes up with the plants for the year, or you can ask the membership to submit what they would like. And over time, our chapter has developed quite a good database, you might say, of plants that we think are either available in the area or we know how people can get them. For instance, a lot of the natives that are not available right in the area, we can get from other nurseries, such as Medina Garden Nursery in Medina. Ernesto and Ismael out there grow just a plethora of native plants, and most of them have been on our plants of the month. And so what we do is we'll decide on 10 plants for the year, and simply we don't do 12. There's one per month, except for the months when we are not having meetings, basically. So we have our break in July and August, and we have a break in November and December. So we just have one plant for each of those paired months. So we have 10 plants. So over time, like I said, we've got several plants in our database. And what we do is when people suggest plants, we go back and look to see if those plants, if someone suggests, let's say, bur oak. So, well, we had that last year, so we don't want to put that on the list. So we'll go back to the database and maybe look for something similar that we hadn't had in a while as a plant of the month. So, and there's different ways to do this. You can come up with your own method, but basically you want to try to come up with several plants for the year. You don't necessarily, maybe you want to just do 4 plants or a plant every other month. So you'll have 6 plants. And we do try to keep the plants native to Texas, but in my mind, I don't let the Rio Grande, in my mind, separate our, separate the plants that we want to try to choose, but we don't want to go overboard. For instance, we could have, like, if you look behind, you look at the background in my video here. There's a dog-faced butterfly on. Let me move my head out of the way. That's Tagetes lucida, which is native to Mexico, mostly northern Mexico. And I don't think we've ever actually used Tagetes lucida, but we have used Copper Canyon daisy, which is Tagetes limonii, I believe. And so we have used that. So, and I don't see any problem with using a plant like that. It should fit in quite well with a nice program. So, but basically, you want to try to stay with local native Texas plants. So,
Hang on a second.
Are there any questions?
Hang on a second, Wilt. I have a question for Bill. I just got a pop-up on my screen that said participants can now see your screen. Does that mean that they weren't seeing the previous slides to this one?
Yes, we have been seeing them, or at least I have been seeing them.
Okay. I don't know why it just now popped up. No echo. Okay, turn off your sound, please, Bill.
Can you hear me better now?
No, I'm echoing.
You're echoing?
Oh, it's gone. Okay, so good. Everyone saw them. So that kind of took us through what Wilt was saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Wilt. This is if you. I think I'm echoing again. No, it's gone. So if you go to their website, this is a screenshot from their website, and you can see from 2002 to 2021. If you're wanting to have a sheet for some promotion of a plant or whatever, you might want to go here and see if they have a sheet on it, because it will give you, especially deer resistance is really important in the hill country. Yeah, I think you need, oh good, he turned it off. Oh, maybe I'm echoing on Wilt's, but anyway, so Wilt, why don't you talk and I'll be quiet while you've got your audio on. If you want to talk through this slide.
Let me just, can I add something here?
Oh, please do.
Which I didn't really talk about. Now we do, of course, when we talk about having plants, we need to do a write-up. Okay, so you can get the membership or the committee, or maybe one individual who really wants to go out there and who loves writing about plants. I've seen where some chapters have one person doing the write-ups, but over time, like I said, we have this large database of plants, and what I mean by that is we have write-ups on these plants, so that if you look on the screen, you see American Beautyberry. That's probably come up two or three times in the 20 years that the program has been in existence, and so we have a nice write-up on that someplace. Actually, we know exactly where it is, and anybody can see these. They're on that whole database of write-ups is on our website. So what we'll do is repost that on our on our monthly newsletter that's posted. That plan, so we'll say what the plan of the month is, and we'll have the write-up on that. And it's a care. It's a program on how to take care of the plant, what the needs are, what the deer resistance is, sun or part sun, whatever the plant needs. And so that'll be on there. And there might, and there, we're also including, and we do have it in a lot of cases, but not all. We're trying to have a write-up, a little story about the plant that goes with this monthly write-up. And so in other words, we recycle a lot. We recycle everything unless we've got a new plant. So if we have a new plant, then we're going to need a new write-up. And we do try to maybe put 1 or 2 new plants a year. Now, the other thing is not all the nurseries. I mean, it's almost impossible for us. We're the Native Plant Society of Texas, and there are a lot of plants that we like that they're just not going to be in a local nursery. But you might be able to find, like I said, somebody like Medina Garden Nursery or one of the other nurseries to the north of Bernie that may have these plants. Or you might be able to get seed and grow your own. There's all kinds of ways to try to, if you want to acquire these plants. And sometimes what I do myself is when I know what the plant is going to be for, what the plants are going to be for that year, for that coming year, I'll actually myself grow some of those plants and provide them at our mostly native plant sale. And so they'll appear there, okay? Or when we have a meeting, we may have one of those plants as a giveaway. Now, the timing of how you of what plants you put, which within any given month, you might want to try to time it with when the plant blooms, I guess, as to what month you want to designate that plant or designate that plant for the month, for that month. So, there's different ways to do it, but there's always things you run into. If you look on our website, I think the very first plant we came up with was mountain laurel, and it's actually showing right here on the screen. Well, the same thing happened this year as what happened back when it was first put on as plant of the month. There was a hard freeze at exactly the time that the blooms were starting, and they were frozen off. And so you had these real nice mountain laurels with no appeal to them, so to speak, to the general public. They always appeal to me, and I know to most of you, flowers or no flowers. Mm-hmm. But these had 0 flowers as what happened this past year, at least in our area. And so, you'll always have problems like, something like that will always come up, whether it's that or, some completely different kind of problem. But just go out there and just do it, just.
You know what I like about your
plants, had nice write-ups, and it'll work. You need to talk. Of course, you'll have these times when you need to talk to the local nurseries. There's 2 or 3 around Bernie, and as an example, there's Hill Country African Violets is what it's called. and they have some native plants and lots of non-native plants. But so we make our poster. We try to have the poster made by January, and we will put those posters in the different nurseries surrounding us. And so if you go to Hill Country African Violets and you buy a plant and you want to check out, if you look right up there on the counter, you'll see our poster, our current poster hanging there. And it's got my contact information if anyone has questions about plants. I've had a couple of calls, but not a lot. So these posters are hanging there in the plant nurseries for people to see. And hopefully, and so like at Hill Country African Violets, they actually have a few stacked in there from previous years, so people can actually page through them and see what the previous year plants were.
That's wonderful.
And they'll have maybe Hill Country African Violets might have, I'd say 25 or 30% of the plants on there. They will not have 100% of the plants that are shown on there.
Well, we'll get there
So like
one
if
day,
you
Will.
look at the what's showing on the Zoom screen right now, they'll have Texas Mountain, they'll have Mountain Laurel, Blackfoot Daisy, Lindheimer's Muhly Grass. They may have Pravonia, they may have American Beautyberry, and they may have Possum Haw, but some of these other, they'll have asters, but they'll be maybe asters, not local asters. They'll be asters from some other part of the US. Okay, questions?
Okay, I think I'm going to move on and talk about the North Central. And then at the very end, in just a few minutes, we'll open it up to questions about anything we've had today. Thank you so much for that review of your history. I really like how y'all do the nice tip at the bottom. So instead of ligustrum, red tip Photinia, for example, use this plant. And the North Central area ones do the same. So thank you so much, Will. Please stick around for the next till about 11:30 in case there's questions about that. But
Okay.
you probably want to mute yourself because we're hearing an echo. That would be great. So about 4 or 5 years ago, the chapters in the North Central area, I didn't put the Dallas chapter on here, I should have done that as well, decided that we love our NICE program, but that we wanted to change the acronym meaning. So we went through all kinds of ideas here for choosing one, and we had votes and revotes, and we decided we landed on natives improve and conserve environments. But certainly all of these will fit with the NICE acronym. And we had originally thought we would keep the NICE logo with the water droplet, but then we thought, well, if we're rebranding, we're going to go ahead and do the whole thing as a rebrand for our region. So we did that, and it took off. And as Walt pointed out, we have these nice signs that can be given to your NICE nursery. So if a chapter chooses to go into the NICE program, they could use, hopefully, I would hope that they would use the natives improve and conserve environments, even if they wanted to use the other look of the acronym with the water droplet, because common exotics is a term now that the scientific professionals are trying to steer us away from and trying to use the terms invasive and non-native instead to clarify these with the public. A lot of times the public will call a native plant that is aggressive in its region because it's happy and it should grow there. They will call that invasive. And of course, that's incorrect. We need to be calling our native plants aggressive or happy or things like that, but not invasive. And so non-native, native, that's sort of where we're going with that. So when your chapter has a program, typically you can get these signs, you can have them made. the Native Plant Society, if your chapter wants to start up a new nice program, the society will give you $200 to get started with that. So you can make these types of signs for your nurseries. And you can also, as well as looking at the wonderful supply of plant sheets, information sheets that the Bernie chapter has, you can go to the Trinity Forks chapter and look on their website. And they also have, since 2006, Dr. Becca Dickstein has been making these particular look of plant sheets for our region. And these are adopted by many chapters in the North Central area. And we, in the last few years, have decided to go with plant of the season rather than plant of the month. So there's flexibility in this program. You can adapt it for the way it works best for your chapter, works best for your region. The state, it's a very large state. We have 12 diverse ecoregions, and one plant that might work in one will not always work best in another. And as we move through time, the Native Plant Society will be focusing more and more on regional plants and encouraging chapters and people to plant and grow plants that are more native to their region. With climate change, we may need, though, to start looking a little bit south of us as the heat starts moving north. So that's something we'll have to keep our eyes on. The program, of course, seeks to raise awareness and educate the public about the benefits of growing native plants. And it provides the foundational support by encouraging and promoting nurseries to have the inventory and sell the native plants so they're available for more people to use. We also need to start working with our growers. And the thinking in the North Central area was that having a plant of the season, planning that a year in advance, we could work with our growers and try to get them to start growing those plants and have them ready for the next year. That's going to take more coordination than we had the volunteer effort to do now. So we need help in that front. But as you can see, the Native Plant Society has this Texas Circle of Life, and all of our programs work together. The NICE Native Plant Partners Program helps with the availability of native plants through wholesalers and nurseries. The chapter demo gardens, plant sales, programs and meetings educate the public and members on native plants. Our NLCP is a more formal and more in-depth and more detailed education on native plants with certification. So if you are in the field, as Meg said earlier, you can have certification that you can put and promote yourself as having been educated by the Native Plant Society of Texas through the Native Landscape Certification Program. And then the Bring Back the Monarchs to Texas encourages people to plant monarch way stations that not only benefit the migratory monarchs, but other migratory butterfly and bird species. On our website, we have, this is a screenshot from the Native Plant Society of Texas's website. If you will look under resources, you can drop down to the NICE Nursery Program and you'll see this. Excuse me. And we have 27 native plant partners listed here. And while that is quite a bit with active links so you can go to their sites, we really need more. We should have every chapter have a NICE program and at least 2 or 3 nurseries in their area that they are cultivating and encouraging them to grow native plants. And then, to sell native plants and promote native plants. And then that in effect will push back to the growers to grow native plants. So that's kind of how that works. In our chapters, what we do is, as Wilt said, we have the sheets, we have representatives that go to the chapters, go to the nurseries and develop a relationship with them. Many of the nurseries here in the North Central Texas will give members of the Native Plant Society a 10% discount with showing their membership card. So what we need is a volunteer to chair this as a statewide committee to help chapters develop their programs, get their programs going, learn how other chapters are doing it. And we currently, this list is, I hope, updated because this is the current list from today from our website. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 chapters out of 37 chapters that are participating. So let's hope more and more participate. And maybe this list needs to be updated. I don't know. But here's the handout from, I picked this up at the New Braunfels chapter, this on the right here, and they were handing this out at their chapter meetings. So you could do something like that even if you're not participating. And maybe they are now because they were new. This was a new chapter at the time when I picked that up. And I think that is all I've got today. On the NICE program, do we want to open it up then for questions?
Kim, there's been a lot of discussion about it in the chat box.
Okay.
Will, I just want to start with Wilt's question. Medina Garden Nursery is not on your list, and he was wondering why not. And my guess is because nobody submitted it.
And that's why we need a chairman. We can't, the people, we don't, if you don't tell us, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. So the chapters have to communicate with the state and tell us what you're doing. Tell us if you have a NICE program, tell us what nurseries in your area are participating, and we'll put them up on the website, but you have to tell us.
Let me just say that we have a place on the chapter activity report for to ask chapters whether they participate in the NICE program, and also to list all of the nurseries that they're involved with. So if you complete the chapter activity report, you can communicate this to us at the same time.
And that may have been done. I want to emphasize we are volunteers and we do work a lot, but we can't do everything. This program needs a statewide chair to help coordinate it and to help make it all detailed and statewide. What other questions do we have?
We have a lot of comments.
Okay. Any questions we can answer here? I'm scrolling through. I'm back at, here's Dr. Becca Dickinson. Yes, the Trinity Forks writer is Dr. Dickinson, but North Central uses those sheets. I think Dallas does as well. I don't know about Prairie Rose or Collin County. But a lot of people work to edit it, and Dr. Dickinson will talk about that tonight. So it is a collaborative effort. Sarah Torres says wildflower.org has a list of growers for native plants. Right, but we can't list them as a NICE nursery unless we know they're a NICE nursery and that they're working in collaboration with a Native Plant Society chapter.
Betsy Paris says, what is the follow-up on the gardens that get grants? Betsy, were you talking about, are you talking about the $200 grant? No, are you talking about the Monarch the Monarch program? You bring back the Monarchs? Oh, okay, yeah. What's the follow-up on the gardens that get grants? I'm sure that Carol goes back to the gardens and checks them, but I don't know exactly how they do that. She's got a team, a committee that works with her on it, and I know that they spend a lot of time out in the field, but you'll have to talk to Carol directly about that.
I think they have to send in a report.
Oh, they send in a report. Okay.
They send in a report. Oh, and it's Dickstein, not Dickenstein. I'm sorry. Please forgive me, Becca. You can set us all straight tonight. So I like what Rebecca says here, that having some know-how on the $200 will go a long way for getting a chapter to start this program up. It's time to pull out all stops. We need a statewide coordinator for this program. We just do. Someone that can work like Carol does for the BBMT. Have y'all ever seen that movie where that actor clones himself and there's like 5 of them around? We can't do that. None of us can do that. Well, you know what? Do we have a pretty small group? I think if anybody, can we make it where everybody can talk, Bill? So if anybody just wants to ask a question, they can. They can unmute themselves and ask. I'm really grateful that y'all came today. And I hope that I hope we had new members coming today and seeing what our programs are about, and seeing what they can get involved with. And
so this is Becca Dickstein. I just unmuted myself, and I just wanted to mention that one of the things that I think makes any program successful is having a group of people who are committed to a common aim, and just having a coordinator for like a statewide NICE program might be great. But I think there will need to be several people who can make sure that when something happens to the core person, there's somebody else to step in. And I know that in the Trinity Forks chapter, having a group of us has been what has kept our NICE program going. And it now includes other chapters.
I agree. It's always better when you have a whole group of people, but we do need someone to start that, to coordinate. Maybe having a chair then could have regional representatives around the state that help the chapters, or, you know, like Carol has a committee. You'll see tonight, or you saw last night, she has like 6 people on her committee that help her do evaluations and decide on the grants, and even go to look at the gardens sometimes in some places. So without a leader to lead the program, we can't have followers. We need somebody to do that. And I think it would be great. We need, and also then to coordinate with the growers and the seed suppliers. Native American Seed does a great job. No, but we can always do more. We can do more. When we fly over, if I haven't flown in a long time, but you look down and you see these suburbs and suburbs and suburbs, and you just think, couldn't we all be like Doug Talmay wants us to be, and be a national park instead of all lawns? And so there's so much opportunity out there for us to do that. You could have a native plant nursery on every corner, and I think that they would still be able to be a viable business. That's what I'm saying. There's so much opportunity. So if anyone's willing to step up, that would be great. We're getting close to the end of our time. Before we go, I want to show y'all my shirt. Isn't that nice? It's available in our cafe store, and the Native Plant Society does not make but maybe $1 off each shirt, but it gets it's a nice shirt to wear. It's a nice promotion, and I hope that you might order one. I see that.
Did that last night.
Did you, Bob? Good. And there's hats you can order, and coffee mugs, and Karina, show me. Can you show me this?
Yeah.
Just hand it to me.
I'm gonna close it.
Okay. There's Sam. Hi, Sam.
Kim, that's an awesome shirt. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Sam, I have a question. I'm not sure if I'm being picked up here because I keep talking, but I'm not hearing it. Can you hear me, Kim?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
I'm trying to find out about the t-shirt. I want to make sure I get the right size. Are they running pretty much true to size? Are they running small? Are they running large?
This is a large that I have. Of course, I'm a large girl, so let's see. It's kind of big. It's a little bit big, but I haven't I haven't washed it yet, so it shouldn't shrink. You know, it's a blend.
And there's a new style I noticed with the 3/4 sleeves. That's nice.
And then there's the baseball style. I also have the baseball style and I've washed it. It fits pretty well. It runs true to size. I think this size is the unisex, which is, this is a man's. This is really my husband's shirt that I put on this morning. I couldn't find mine.